What's up guys, my name is Andy. This video is a continuation of the previous two Mustang videos that I had done where I had put larger front brakes on my car. I did the MOD1 front brake kit from Mike Maier. Put these larger 13-inch rotors, 6-piston calipers on the front, new spindles. It was a really big upgrade and I'm excited to try it out. And then I put on some new wheels and tires, some wider 255/40 series tires on some 17x8-inch wheels. And I got everything put together and I was ready to go out and do the break-in process, the bedding for the brake pads on these new brakes. And when I was pulling the car out of the garage, I noticed there was a sound as the tires kind of rubbing funny on the concrete as I was backing up. And I found out that there was some play in the ball joints on these new big pin spindles that I put in because they don't fit the parts on the 66 Mustang. And to show you the difference, here is the ball joint that was on my Mustang, and here's the new one that we need to put in. This is a much larger pin. Thankfully, that's the same thread pitch and everything, so I can just unscrew the one that was in the car and put in the new one. I should have caught this when I was doing the big brake install, because I did put those new big pin spindles from the 1970 Mustang in there, and they do take a larger ball joint. I wasn't paying attention to that. I found it at the end. Good thing I didn't drive the car and ruin anything, but I need to get these installed real quick. So I got the driver's side done already. Let's do the passenger side real quick and get this done so we can get the car out on the road. Now, thankfully, this is gonna be a pretty easy swap out, but I do wanna point out there's a way we can do this without having to go to the alignment shop right now. I'll show you how to do that, but you still need to get in alignment when you're done. It's just a safer way to do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this castle nut off. Notice these washers that I got stacked in here. This is what I was thinking I needed to do to get the stud of the ball joint farther up inside to fully seat it inside here. And it ended up not working. See, I mean, it shouldn't move like that at all. It's because the stud is too small, and I didn't know that at the time, but I know now. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. So that was easy to take out because the pin didn't fit. If it was a closer fit, I'd have had to probably use a pickle fork or something to get it out of there or hit it with a hammer, but cool. So now what I want to do is I'm going to loosen up this jam nut. But I don't want to spin the ball joint. And what we're going to do is to avoid having to go to the alignment shop right this second, I'm going to measure from this surface right here on the end of this adjustment piece to the end of the ball joint. And I'm getting right about 3.5, not even 3 9/16, but about 3.5 inches from, again, this surface to the end of the ball joint. On the other side of the car, it was actually 3 3/4 because of the adjustment on this thing. It doesn't matter where, that this doesn't match the other side of the car because they do the fine adjustments, and depending on how much threads you had in here when you installed it all, it doesn't matter. But for here, I want to recreate that so that I can get in probably within a thread length difference between what I have here and what the new one's going to be, and that'll be enough to get me to the alignment shop and I'll be able to dial it in perfectly. Fun fact on these tie rods, so all these tie rods are measured with a 1.5 inch or 1.5 inches per inch of taper. I believe that's how it went. And as about every 2 years they increase the size of the diameter in the bottom one, which increases the diameter of the top, and as they keep that same ratio. And by the time we got to 1970, for these larger spindles, they use a larger diameter pin on the bottom, which means why this one doesn't fit, this older one doesn't fit in the new spindle. Not a big deal. I wish I would have known that to begin with. It's one of those things that you learn as you're working on these cars, that you figure out as you go. But the nice thing is the new one will thread right in here, and it's going to make it super easy to make this swap. And don't forget to take this jam nut with you. We're going to need that on the new ball joint. Now the adjustment on like the stock setup, there's like a clamp that goes on there. This is an aftermarket style, so not everybody has a jam nut, but if you do, don't forget it. You're going to want it on the new one. Now again, the same thing, it's the same thread pitch and everything, so that works out really easy. I don't have to buy a whole new linkage setup for the steering. I can just buy these rod ends, and thankfully it's the same pitch on both sides. Like this is a right hand thread, this one up here is a left hand thread, so again, you don't have to buy a right and left rod end for this. You just buy two of the same ones, and there you go. Okay, now let's measure it. I don't know if you guys can see this on the camera very good, but we're sitting right around 3 5/8. Yeah, you guys can't see that, but so we're gonna take it in a couple turns. Boy, that is right. Again, you guys aren't gonna be able to see that very well, but from where I'm seeing, this 1/2 inch mark on 3 1/2 is right here on this outer edge. When I put the tape measure up against here, I mean, gosh, we've got to be within a thread, which is going to be good enough to get us down the road, and then we can get an alignment done. And when we put this up in here, you may find that you have to put an extra washer on here to soak up the distance, because we drive this castle nut on. We want the castle pieces to align with the hole for the cotter pin, and we don't want to. We want to make sure that everything aligns up correctly here, and an extra washer might be what you need. Now we're sitting pretty good. This is lined up. I can go ahead and feed that guy through. I'm gonna give it one more zip just to make sure that this thing's tight all the way. Done. Now before, when you rock this thing back and forth, this would pivot back and forth because that stud was too small, right? But as we move this thing, it's easier when you got a big tire on here, but this thing's not moving at all, and that's exactly what we're looking for. All right. And the proper way to do that probably isn't to measure to the end of the ball joint like I was doing, but to measure to the center of the ball joint stud, because then it takes any slop for, you know, the housings being different or whatever. But we'll get, this will be enough to get us going for now. All right, I think what we can do is take these jack stands out now, drop the car back down and torque those wheel lugs, and then I think we can get out of here. All right, so the what I was going to do in the last video was these break-in instructions. So to set this up, to do the bedding of the brake pads, there's a whole process here we want to do. You know, we start at 20 miles an hour and then we stop, and then go 30 miles an hour and we stop, and that kind of stuff. There's a whole setup here. So I want to get that done. And then there's a whole setup in here about adjusting the brake bias. I've got one of those proportioning valves in here for my brakes. I want to get that set up, but it's just to let the car cool down for, what was it, 1 to 2 hours. So I'll do that later on because we don't need to do that in this video, but let's get the car fired up and get it on the road, and not only do the brakes, but let's see how these new tires and wheels feel on this car. That's a lot of toe, guys. I've got a lot of toe in on both sides. And I wonder if it's the placement of where that ball joint goes. You know, this thing here, I wonder if it's not in the same relative place on this 1970 spindle. This is a 66 spindle, but the one that's in the car, I wonder if they're not in the same exact spot, so I need to check the toe. I mean, even from here, it just looks like there's just a ton of toe in. I got a lot of camber. I know I got a lot of camber, but that just looks like that's just gonna not work for me. Woohoo! That does look awesome though. Yeah, I think I need to adjust that. Even just pulling into the garage, I can still hear that sound because there's so much toe. I gotta jack that up. So what I'm gonna put it up on some ramps, and then, because I need the suspension to be compressed like it is, so that everything where it's supposed to be. I'll put on some ramps, then I can adjust those tie rod ends, and bring everything in. Actually, technically I gotta push the back, or bring the back in, yeah, so it brings the front of the tire outward and lines it up better. So let me do that real quick. All right, guys, I'm gonna save you the boredom of me doing all the adjustments, but what I ended up having to do was actually take the wheel off and disconnect that ball joint back there on the spindle and thread in, even up that adjustment piece in the center, even up the threads, get it all the way in on both sides. I had to take the ball joint off of both sides and then start from there and then unscrew them and dry them out so I can get to the right thing. And so it's gonna be hard to see on the camera. I can't hold the camera and hold this at the same time, but I've got about 3/16 of a gap, or of toe in. So the measurement in the back is about 3/16 longer than the front. And the system that I have, it's not super high tech, it's very simple, but it's pretty cool. They give you this chart, and depending on where you're supposed to be for the degrees of toe in, tell you what the equivalent inch would be. So that's kind of neat. So I'm right around 0.4 to 0.48, somewhere 0.4, 0.5 degrees of toe in. And that's good, that's where I wanna be. It's not perfect. I still need to take it to an alignment shop and really get an alignment done, just because they got all the equipment, they got the computers and the lasers and stuff, and they can dial it in. But for home, this will get me down the road, and I'm not gonna scrub off all the rubber on my tires from all that toe in that I had. And this is just the other side of that thing. So I've got that plate on there, got the tape measures hooked up. I got it zip tied to the wheel so it'll stay level. I tried to level this with the bottom of the tire on both sides so that it's level and even. And again, it's not an exact science, guys. It's enough to get me out the garage and down the road without ruining my tires, and I'm close enough. Let me show you that spindle problem I was having. So this ball joint here on the end of this, so the arm for the spindle is actually farther away from the wheel than the spindle that I had on here before, the 66 Mustang spindle. When I was measuring everything up and checking tire fitment and everything, this was actually a lot closer to the wheel. I pointed out in the video when I was trying to decide what wheel and what offset or backspacing to put on. But this one, because it's farther inboard and I left the adjustments of the distance of this the same, it actually pushed or brought the inside of the tire out, or sorry, the back of the tire outward, which brought the front of the tire inboard and made it look like I had a ton of toe. So I didn't realize that when I was putting everything together, but now we know that the old 66 spindle, the placement of this guy is not in the same location, and that's why I was having that toe problem. All right, now I think we can drive. Let's get the car off these ramps and we can finally get it out on the road, which I've been trying to do for a couple of weeks. Alright guys, sorry it's the next day. I ran out of time. When I was pulling the car out, I heard the subtlest little rubbing, and it turns out it was the rear passenger tire was barely touching the sheet metal inside the tub, the fender tub. So I pulled the wheel off and just bent the metal a little bit, and we're good to go there. It's not rubbing anymore. And then while I was thinking about it, I was looking at my previous alignment settings, and I was closer to an 1/8 inch of toe in, so I went ahead and readjusted the toe. I'd rather be where I was, with the settings that I had earlier. So after all that kind of stuff, I ran out of time. So it's a different day now, so we're gonna get out and test the brakes. So I already did the 10 to 15 mile an hour aggressive stop. So the next one is the 20 mile an hour. I got a car behind me, so let's let him pass. And then I won't be holding anybody up. Let's go around. Good grief. Okay, now we're gonna get up to 20 miles an hour. Stop, okay. That was good. Now get up to 30 miles an hour. killed the engine. So I locked up the rear brakes. That means I've got too much rear bias. And I don't want to do that. I need to adjust. Because I know that when we go for the 40 mile an hour, that's the next one on the list. We're just going to lock this thing up, and I don't want to kill the engine again. There we go. A little better. I didn't push as hard on that one. I was afraid of locking up the rears. Going to go a little faster. I don't want to lose control of the car. But now I got more traffic around me, so I'm going to let these guys pass me, and then we'll get back to, we'll do the next one, the 50 mile an hour. All right, 50 mile an hour. And we didn't come to a complete stop there. Now I got another car behind me. Kind of ruining my thing here. I'm trying it on a country road where there's not a lot of traffic, and there just happens to be just enough cars to kind of ruin this whole thing. But all right, let's get down there a little bit. Let's let the brakes cool off. All right, we let the brakes cool off a little bit. There's no cars around us. It says that I can do an optional 40 mile an hour stop for thorough bedding. So let's give that one a go. 40. Whew. Yeah. That's why I don't want to push so hard. You probably can't tell, but the back end stepped out, and I really don't need to lose the car right now. All right, let's drive normal. So the next step, it says to let the car cool off for 1 to 2 miles before we do anything else. We don't want to stop the car with hot rotors. We don't want to warp the rotors, so that's fine. I got a little bit of driving I can do. And then it says let the car sit for 1 to 2 hours before we do the brake bias thing. So I let the car cool down, and I'll do that maybe this afternoon or something. But let's see if we can find some twisties and see how these tires feel. Because you know, we're doing brakes and tires, right? Kind of all at once. What's great about these country roads is less likely to get in trouble for doing stupid stuff, right? Let's turn around. Alright guys, we should probably head back to the house before I get in too much trouble. Alright guys, so let's talk about the brakes. So far these brakes are great. They stop real fast. You know, I'm trying to think about what I can say to the camera and pay attention to the brakes. It's difficult to do, but so far everything's been great. The car locks up. I need to adjust that proportioning valve like we talked about and get a chance to kind of dial that in. But other than that, the brakes, this car is so light. There's a lot of brake for this car, and that's what I wanted. I want to be able to stop this thing on a dime, right? And that's what I got. And then, you know, to couple that with those wider tires, just kind of going through the corners a little bit, there's a lot of grip in this car. And you can feel it, you know, as I dart back and forth, it just grabs. And with this wider contact patch of that tire, I got all the grip I'm gonna need. And I'm liking that. I'm not hearing any rubbing. And again, I have that pan hard bar. I think that's important for people that are looking at the size of wheels and tires that I've got, because I've got that panhard bar, that axle is not moving laterally, you know, left to right. So those tires are not going to move inside that tub at all. And that's important. That allows me to get away with large tires and the offset that I have on these wheels, or the backspacing. So other than that, guys, this has been great. The only thing I'm not, because I had to do that toe adjustment and mess with the steering thing, my steering wheel's off. So I gotta fix that, but I can do that at home. That's pretty easy. But other than that, I'm running low on fuel, so I'm gonna run to the gas station and get some gas. All right, and then I'll head back to the house. All right, so yeah, that was a win, right? Well, I mean, win for me. Car worked, wheels didn't fall off, brakes worked. I didn't put the car in the ditch when the back end tightened up on me. I wasn't expecting that. And then, like I said, I gotta go back and adjust the brake bias. And because I've got that more, the rears are locking up, I wanna go counterclockwise with that adjustment knob until I get to the point where the rears don't lock up. But I'm gonna take care of that a little bit later, let the car cool down and do that maybe this afternoon. So cool. So just to recap, this video kind of follows up me putting on those large MOD1 brakes from Mike Maier. They're Wilwood 13-inch rotors with those 6-piston calipers. And then I've got those big pin spindles from the 1970 to 73 Mustang put on here. And then I've got those 17x8 ET Mag LT3 wheels with 4.75-inch backspacing, and then 255/40/17 Falcon Zenith RT 615K Plus tires. That's what I put on here. And again, this car is fun to drive. It's amazing how much you can get this thing to dart. And also I have that power steering on here now that again, another thing I got from Mike Maier, another kit that we put on the car, and I wish I would have done the power steering before. I liked the connection that the manual steering gave me. I felt like I was kind of more with the car, but the ease in which I can drive the car, this power steering is really, it's a big upgrade, and I like that. So yeah, yay, another one done. Cool. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.